This is a review of Parallel by Lauren Miller, published by Harper Teen. I don't know when this came out, I didn't check the date, but it's set in 2008 and 2009, so I'm assuming it may be published around then. But it doesn't matter, it still works and it's still a great story. This story uses story braiding, a technique that I talk about a lot, so I wanted to talk about it in more depth. And so I'm reading and rereading some books that use this technique in a really clear and very well done fashion. This book is science fiction, young adult romance. And it may even be first person present tense. I honestly don't remember, which tells you that I really enjoyed the book, because if it was first person present tense, it didn't bother me. And if it was first person past tense, it didn't bother me either. Although that usually wouldn't bother me. If you normally prefer to read contemporary romance and you're not really into science fiction, then you'll probably like this book too, because it's very contemporary romance feel to it. That's where most of the action takes place, and that's where most of the emphasis is on. I'm not a huge fan of contemporary romance. I need some kind of fantasy or science fiction gimmick to get me into it. And for me, this was enough. If you're a hardcore science fiction person and you don't like romance, this book will probably not be for you. But if you like that crossover genre, then you'll like this book. The idea, and the title suggests it, is that there are parallel worlds. Now, what's interesting about this take on the multiverse, and they do use that term in the book, is that they say not all of these parallel worlds have to be in the same year at the same time. So there are two storylines, and the book alternates between them chapter by chapter. One is the storyline that takes place in 2008 when the heroine is a high school senior. And the other, which is kind of at the same time in terms of the multiverse, but a year ahead in terms of its own linear structure, is 2009, and the heroine is in her first year in college, or in some of the versions, in the beginning of a career as a Hollywood actress. Now, the science fiction gimmick in this, which is kind of cool, and I don't know if I've seen it before, is there's an earthquake, or what people think is an earthquake, until they realize that this earthquake, in air quotes, was experienced by everyone around the world at the same time. And there's a scientist character who hypothesizes, and that is also the hypothesis of the book, the premise of the book, that two parallel universes collided, and that is what was experienced as an earthquake by everyone on Earth. So in a sense, we would realize this earthquake, or this shaking, this tremor, was actually felt throughout the entire universe, not just the entire planet. I think that's actually a really cool idea. It's just kind of a little science fiction nugget in the heart of the story. When this happens, the heroine, who is an actress in Hollywood, is suddenly shifted from her universe into another parallel universe. Now, she is in 2009, and the parallel universe that she shifted into is also 2009, but it isn't quote-unquote her universe. It belongs to her past self, or a past self from that universe. Okay, it's getting a little confusing, but it actually makes perfect sense, who made a different decision. So in one universe, the heroine chose to go to Yale University with her best friend, and she meets a guy there. And in another universe, the heroine took a different class in high school, and that completely changed her life because she was in a school play where she got picked up by a talent agent. And so instead of going to college, she goes to LA and she becomes a Hollywood star. Now, if you want to see a lot of stuff about being a Hollywood star, that's actually not in here, because we don't really see her doing that. We see her suddenly waking up at Yale University and wondering, why am I here instead of at a party with my Hollywood friends or on the set doing my latest film? But she doesn't understand the decisions that brought her there until her past self, who created this alternate universe, goes through the decisions. And so that is where you get this really cool parallel structure of the self in 2008 and the consequences of her decisions in 2009. So as the character in 2008 makes decisions and chooses boyfriends, gets in fights with her best friend, and so on and so forth, those consequences then completely change the universe of 2009 that the heroine, who remembers everything, our main narrator in the 2009 scenario, experiences. It sounds really complicated, but it's told in a way that makes it very clear, and it's really cool. Let me give an example of how it works, because it's actually pretty clear when you read it, and that's another sign that it's a really well-written book. She's originally a runner, and then in 2008 she makes a decision to walk through a construction site without shoes on, and steps on a nail. Suddenly the heroine in 2009 wakes up and finds out that herself is no longer a runner, that she switched to being on crew, doing some kind of boating. Okay, I don't know. It's an East Coast sport. I don't know East Coast sport. Sorry, guys. But she did that because for a month she couldn't run, so she switched sports. So every decision she makes in the past changes the parallel universe that she finds herself in the future. So when she meets somebody in 2009 at Yale University, she meets this guy and he's really hot and they start getting really interested in each other. Then she thinks, oh my gosh, but if I get too close to him, my stupid self back in 2008 is going to make some dumb decision that's going to break us up. And sure enough, herself back in 2008 meets another guy. And spoiler alert, now I won't spoil it, but it's really funny. Okay, that's the end of the spoiler-free section. I will spoil it. So the cool part is then it turns out that they're brothers, okay? Yes, it's a ridiculous coincidence, but somehow, it's parallel universes. That's already kind of a ridiculous coincidence, right? So in one scenario, she's in love with one brother, and in the other one, she's in love with the other brother, and now she has to choose it. So it is like the craziest love triangle that you've ever heard of. It's a very original way to do a love triangle, and I think that a lot of the complaints people have about love triangles, like, wouldn't you know who you're really in love with, don't apply to this, because she really wouldn't, because in one, she's met one guy and she doesn't know the other brother, and in the other universe, she knows one brother and she doesn't know the other guy. The character who's in 2009, because the other one is her past, or somebody's past, she is able to remember both once they've occurred in tangent. So when Halloween happens for her in 2009, Halloween happens for her past self in 2008. And once it's past that, then she remembers what happened on that day for her. So by the end of the book, then she has to decide between which one is her true love and which one is not. And so it actually has a really good resolution, and it has a very good ending. If you want to know the ending, since this is the spoiler part, I'll tell you how it goes, because I think it's quite original and cool. She concludes that she does pick which brother she wants. I won't tell you which brother she picks, and it's not complete spoiler. But what she concludes is that her other past self is the true love, the soulmate of the other brother. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. It kind of lets you have your cake and eat it too. She has a choice between which true love is her real true love, and at the same time, it affirms the existence of soulmates, the one person you're destined to be with, no matter what crazy things seem to shift you onto a different path. Somehow, no matter which path you're on, you will somehow connect with your one true soulmate. And to make this work, at the very end, she does finally return to her true dimension. Well, my goobers are after me right now, so I've got to go tend to my little children, and I will see you later. Tara out.